I want to speak directly to what is unfolding in Cameroon because this is not merely an election. I'm referring to October 12th. What's being exposed is, a lack of a better word or a blunt word, a fraud machine. The regime of Paul Biya, the Electoral Commission, and the Constitutional Council of La République du Cameroon are acting in concert to deliver a predetermined outcome of the elections of October 12th. And the recent revelations by Jeune Afrique belong at the heart of that indictment. According to Jeune Afrique, emissaries of or representatives of Paul Biya, dispatched last week, led by the governor of the northern region to east side Chiroma, ladies and gentlemen, approached the candidate, approached Issa Chiroma Bakari before the official proclamation of the results. Again, that is a key word, before the proclamation of official results. They offered him the post of prime minister. However, on condition that he drops his contention of the election result and supply a list of his close collaborators to the regime to be appointed into the administration. In addition, the regime promised the revision of the electoral code ahead of the 2026 local and parliamentary elections. What does all this amount to? How does it sound in your ears? If not accessory before the fact, if Chiroma was offered high office, patronage, access to government positions, and a role in crafting the next electoral code, all before the official results have been proclaimed, then what we are witnessing is not competitive politics. It is a rigged process from end to end. Let's get the point very clear. The fraud in this case is not confined to the offers made, the bribes, the patronage, the coercive inducements. All of them matter. But the crux is this: the regime and its instruments know the outcome before official proclamation, or at the very least, they acted as though they do. They approached Chiroma, negotiated, offered him a deal, expected him to play along. Why negotiate if you do not know what the outcome will be or the outcome is? Why promise the winner's spoils if you have not already decided the winner? That's a question on the balance. If this is not proof of fraud, then what is it? How did the Biya regime know 2 weeks in advance of proclamation of the results who would win? How did the regime act with such confidence, even entitlement? Why extend the olive branch of premiership if you still needed to wait for counting, certification, and result proclamation? What logic in competitive election would allow that? It makes the election exercise look like window dressing, a theater of democracy wrapped around a foregone conclusion. So we must ask, every Cameroonian out there should ask, was the vote ever meant to matter? Was the counting ever real? Or was the election simply an instrument of legitimization to give the impression of democracy while the outcome had already been negotiated behind closed doors? The apparatus is clear. ELECAM, the regime's counting commission, issues provisional results, and we've seen out there in the social media from Minad pointing to Biya's victory. The Constitutional Council stands ready to proclaim the official result tomorrow, Thursday, as planned. Yet, suddenly, the proclamation has been postponed until Monday with no official explanation. Instead of transparency, we get silence. Instead of certification, we get delay. Why the delay though? There are two possibilities that loom. First one, the council simply needs more time to allow the regime to prepare for the political fallout of the outcome. Or two, perhaps, just perhaps, the regime is willing to negotiate an exit, but only if its conditions are met. If Issa Chiroma agrees to negotiate, then the regime and its electoral body might shift the proclamation to him, unlocking the exit plan carefully negotiated. In either scenario, if the council declares the result as Bia's victory on Monday without delay, the picture will be clear. This was never about credible competition. It was about process control. Process control. Now let me walk you through why this matters. In any credible democracy, the contest happens first. The outcome emerges from the tally. Winners are declared. Losers accept or legally contest. Not the other way around. But here we see the reverse. Proud to official tally, the regime negotiates the spoils, shapes the transition of government, offers positions, and all predicated on the assumption of victory. That turns the election into a sham, isn't it? That is what it is. Because the election did not end with the voting, but likely ended long before at the negotiation table. The people's ballots became secondary. The counting became secondary. And the institutional finalism of the Constitutional Council became mere rubber stamp. Elekam's role was not to reflect the will of the people, but to produce a result compatible with a pre-negotiated arrangement. And that is the fraud. That is the fraud. And make no mistake here, the Constitutional Council, by delaying proclamation and enabling this process, becomes party to the fraud. Elekam, by surrendering counting to negotiation rather than transparency and verification, becomes part of the fraud. The regime, the Bia's regime, by orchestrating the deal behind the scenes, becomes the architect of fraud. This is not just democratic erosion. This is a rigged election. For the people of La République du Cameroon and for the world watching, the stakes are huge. If the proclamation goes ahead on Monday without genuine transparency, without reckoning for the offers made before counting, and without open verification of every polling station result, then every legal recourse, every institutional facade, every democratic sentence would have been desecrated. If the proclamation identifies Bia as a winner, after all this has played out, few will believe the outcome. If alternatively, Issa Chiroma accepts Bia's exit and negotiate his exit, then they will proclaim the results in his favor as a winner of the election. He would have won the vote and the bargain. And as for the next steps, the regime already signaled its intention to revise the electoral code before next year's local and parliamentary elections. That too is very telling, isn't it? Elections are not genuine mechanisms for change. They are preset transitions. And the code is being altered to cement the arrangement, not open democracy. In short, this isn't about one contested election in La République du Cameroon. It is about a system that knows its outcome before the vote, negotiates it before the count, then moves its institutions to proclaim it after. That is fraud in its purest form. The election became a show. As you prepare for what happens on Monday, ladies and gentlemen, remember this: the people voted. The ballots were cast. But if you overlook the pre-negotiation, you miss the greater crime. If you watch the result proclaimed and you say nothing, you become participant in the fraud. If you believe the process is legitimate because papers were signed, seals placed, verdict published, think about it again. Think again. Because the real fraud lies in the moment when a candidate was offered the premiership, the prime minister position before the votes were even tallied. That in plain daylight is a smoking gun. That is accessory before the fact to election fraud. That is the core, the crux of the matter here. Let Monday come, but let it come under the scrutiny of every Cameroonian, every observer, and every defender of democracy in that country. Because what will be proclaimed will not simply say winner declared. It will say whether institutions stood for the people or for a regime. And if the institution choose to serve the regime, then Cameroon's democracy, so-called, is not just at a crossroads. It's been shoved off the road.